What's up, guys? So today we're going to show you how to install a Fab Fours red steel winch mount bumper with a Badlands ZXR 12,000 pound winch on a 2005 Ford F-250 6-liter. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is remove my aftermarket light bar that I put on there, and then once we get that off, then we can get underneath and get to all the bolts to get everything off. And then once the bumper's off, we should have to remove both tow hooks and the fog lights, and then we'll be ready to put the new one on. So we just took our light bar off. Now we're gonna get underneath, figure out what bolts we need to take off, and then show you what those are and then take it off. But I believe the only bolts we have to take off are 3 of them. We have 1 right here and then 2 right there. These nuts are welded onto the plate. So we're gonna have to come from the front side and undo those bolts in the front and then see if there's anything else. Got the front bumper off. It was the 3 bolts that we talked about, the 1 on the side, 2 on the front, and you just do that on the other side. And then make sure you unplug your fog lights beforehand, and then it just comes right off. Okay, so now we're ready to put our brackets and winch plate onto the front of the truck. I've already looked through the manual and everything to kind of figure out how to put this on. The only thing I would say with the Fab Fours bumper, it looks great. I love it. I'm really excited to put it on, but they don't show any instructions on how to mount the plates correctly to the bumper or anything like that. They just have the instructions for the winch plate, and it would have been awesome to have actual good instructions and go from A to B on how to put it together, because some of the stuff we're just gonna have to figure out on our own. Not a big deal, but Fab Fours, if you're listening, maybe just do a little more detailed instructions and it'd be perfect. Up and sit on the So what we figured out, and this is why we need better instructions, we believe that this front side needs to match to that, and these multiple bolts here with all these different adjustments will fit onto here, so that you can adjust how high or how low you want it. And that's what we're gonna try. We're gonna go from there. What we need to make sure of right now is make sure that both brackets are the same height above the ground, so that they're even, so that when we mount our winch plate, everything will hopefully line up correctly. We were gonna level it, but it actually won't matter leveling these, keeping them flat, because it all depends on if the truck is level or not. So we're just going to focus on making sure they're both the right height above the ground, and then it should match with the truck. So we got both brackets on there. We believe that's the correct way to go. So now what Fab Fours is saying in their winch manual is to install the winch plate, but only installing the 2 top bolts. Don't install the bottom ones yet. We're going to install the winch first and then finish up with the bottom bolts after. Okay, so we got our winch tray on. We're just getting it set so we can get an idea of what's going on. So we just put 1 bolt on either side just to hold it there. we realized the winch is going to come down from the top, not the bottom, which means we need to take this grill off. It's just 4 bolts on the top, and then when you take the 4 bolts off, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clips that you should take off with a really long flathead screwdriver. Comes right off. Okay, so this is the winch we're going to put on. We have our instruction manual right here. Thank you, Harbor Freight, for doing some good instructions. I like it. It's very detailed. Really like that. This bumper has really good recommendations from everyone that I've talked to that have used it. That's why I went with it. A Warren winch is pretty expensive and I couldn't afford one. So I was really happy to hear that someone was making a really reliable winch for a much better price. So really excited about how this is going to turn out. We have our pieces here, but what we're focused on is the winch itself, so we can mount it to our winch tray. And there you go. Okay, so we put the winch on. We just put 2 bolts on just to hold it in place so we can get a picture of the process of what we need to do, because again, not really any instructions. We have to center the winch mounting plate with the truck. If we put a level on this mounting plate, as you can see, it's not level. But if you back up and you look at the mounting plate compared to the whole truck, it looks even and it matches the truck. And that's why a level won't tell you if it's correct or not. You can't depend on a level. You have to eyeball it and you have to make sure that everything matches with how your truck is sitting. Otherwise, it's going to look crooked. The way that we leveled it was we went ahead and we tightened down both top bolts for the mounting plate, and then we backed up and we looked at it and we saw that this right side was too high. So we just loosened these 2 bolts. I had my buddy eyeball it while I held it and I moved it up and down until it looked level and matched the truck. And then we tightened it down real quick, checked it again, and it was good to go. Okay, so we feel pretty good about what we've done so far. So we got our winch plate mounted. We went ahead and tightened down everything as well as our winch. We went ahead and just got all our bolts in place. Now we're going to dry fit the bumper, just make sure everything looks pretty good, and then throw the bolts in, hold it on, get it adjusted correctly, and then tighten it down. Okay, so in every car or truck install, there's some point where you get really nervous and you know something's not going to quite be right. This is that time. We dry fitted our front plating bumper, and as you can see, it's pretty crooked. And if we try to straighten it, it hits the headlights. And at first, we were like, oh my gosh, everything's over. It's all ruined. And then common sense kicked in. The reason that they put slots on our mounting plates and not just holes is so that you can adjust it up and down. So all we have to do is loosen the winch plate bolts, let everything kind of sit down a little more, tilt this back till it's straight and level, and then bolt it on, tighten it down, and we're good to go. Okay, so we took the bracket mounting bolts out and we lowered them as far down as they will go, and the bumper fits on just barely under the headlight. So in a minute here, we're going to retighten everything down here, our mounting bolts. There's 4 of them. Then when those are tightened all the way, we can put this guy on because we know it's going to fit. We'll run our adjustments, make sure it's straight, tighten it down, good to go. Okay, so we have finally, after 30-45 minutes of testing everything, and we're ready to put on our bumper. But before that, we're going to go ahead and wire in our winch first. This is the wiring diagram from Harbor Freight. That'll come in the instructions. However, the updated winch is different from the wiring diagram that they send you. If you look, on the instructions, the long red one goes to your battery, and they say that it's on the second to the right exit of the box. But if you look on here on the box itself, the long one going to the battery is on the second to the left. So just keep that in mind. If you notice that, don't freak out. It's okay. The instructions are a little outdated and they've updated the box. So that's the only difference between the instructions and the winch, is that your battery line is just coming out of a different spot. So we're gonna run our wiring from the winch. We're not gonna wire anything up yet. We're just getting the wires out of the box so that we can go ahead and put on our bumper and we can worry about the wiring later. Okay, so we had a couple issues we ran into, but I think we finally got it. Fingers crossed. It was a pain in the butt to get this winch and all the wiring done and in here before we got this in. It was tricky, definitely a two-man job. If you can have 3 people, it would really save you some time, but that's okay. What we did was we got all our wiring done. We're gonna do some cleaning up, some zip tie work to make it look really nice and tidy in there. And then we're just gonna leave the wires hanging. We're not gonna worry about them right now. We just wanted to get this all organized because when we put this bumper on, we're not gonna be able to get to this wiring. It's gonna be in there permanently. So we wanna make sure this is done in time. The box was tricky. If you have to put this box on first, but then it won't fit inside your winch plate. So you can either A, loosen your winch plate after you did all your alignment, which would take forever, or B, what we did was we took the winch, we turned it so that the box was going down first, and then you tilt it back, and then you bring it back in, and then you can mount it up and it fits in. Just be patient, just take your time, be really slow, and it'll work. Okay, so the issue we're running into now is that Fab 4's, all the pieces are just a little too long. So we don't want to cripple our integrity of our brackets here. So we're just going to cut 2 little corners out of each lip where it's scraped and hit the metal, and then we should be able to get it to the right level and back to flush. Okay, so we had to do a lot of cutting. We've taken it off and put it back on like 20 times, but as you can see, this bracket used to come out to here, and we had to cut this whole chunk out so that it would fit on our mounting brackets. And it's okay to cut out of here because this piece right here is just to hold a light pod if you want to put one in there. We don't want to cut this on the bracket because that's a main support piece. So you don't want to hit that, you don't want to touch that, but you can cut this and cut it to what you need to, and then hopefully it'll mount up. We will also take the bolts for our cable output on our winch and flip them so that there's no washer on this side, because this bolt here is hitting this bottom bolt there. So we need to get that out of the way so that we can get it all squared up and fit. Okay, so after many hours, we have finally got it on and mounted correctly. It took a lot of thinking, and I had extra help because you can never do anything alone. And we got it on correctly and safely and properly. We got our winch mounted through here. Once we wire it, we'll pull it back in, make it flush, make it look good. We got our bumper on, our grill back on. We had to do a little bit of cutting on the bottom side of it, but it looks really clean. You can't even tell the difference. Now we're just gonna wire up the winch and then it'll be ready to go. Okay, finally, after many hours, we got it done. We have the remote hookup right here. Everything works, everything's mounted properly. It looks incredible. Really, really excited, really happy about it. My only negative review would be Fab 4's just a little more instruction and detail on how to install it. It was a little tricky. We had to cut some parts, as you saw. We had to cut some pieces off the inside of this bumper. So hopefully that can be a design change later in the future. And hopefully they have a little better instructions for the average guy to be able to put it on. But really happy about it, really excited. I'm really excited to test out that Harbor Freight winch. And yeah, that's how you install the Fab 4's red steel winch mount bumper on a 2005 Ford F-250.